What if the speed of light was 30 miles an hour?
What if Earth had two suns?
Which cereal mascot would win in a fight?
What if everyone lived underground?
What if it
What
rained
if money
food?
grew on
What
trees?
if pigs could fly?
I don't know if that would actually happen.
It's much easier to store a unicycle than to store a horse.
Hello everybody and welcome to Absurd Hypotheticals, the show we overthink dumb questions so you don't have to. I'm your host Marcus Lehner, and I'm joined here today by Chris Yee and Ben Storms. Say hi, guys.
Hey, I'm Chris.
Hey, I'm Ben.
Guys, as we approach the colder temperatures, I am more and more thinking about places that are not as cold, beautiful tropical island beaches. So this week's question is going to be about islands. Specifically, what if instead of these nasty New England snowy places, we all lived on islands? What if everyone lived on islands is the question for this week.
Which is a strange question.
Well, it's not that strange a question, but there are a couple different ways that you can interpret it. So we left it open between us how we would interpret exactly what it means to live on islands and how that's gonna look.
Yeah, each of us did it like a slightly different way.
Yeah. So Chris, why don't you go ahead and get us started with how you looked at it and what you did.
Yeah, so the way that I interpreted this question is that basically there are like less people on the Earth to match the same amount of like the number of islands that there are currently on Earth. So that prompted the question, how many islands are there? So I had to figure that out. And that prompted the question, what is an island? Which I thought would be pretty clear, but it wasn't. So Merriam-Webster's definition of an island is a tract of land surrounded by water and smaller than a continent. So that eliminates continents. That's pretty easy. I think most people would say continents are not an island. But that would also include like really, really, really small rock formations, which I don't think makes sense to count as an island. Doesn't really seem reasonable. So like, what is the minimum size for an island? There's actually no standard size. So it's pretty hard to classify. So I started looking up like lists of smallest islands, and one that showed up on a bunch of lists was called Just Room Enough. That's the name of the island, is Just Room Enough. It's the smallest inhabited island. It's in New York, and it's 3,300 square feet, which is smaller than a standard IMAX screen. And I saw a picture of it. It's just like, it has a house, it has a tree, it has some shrubs, and then it has like a really small beach on it. And it shows up on like a lot of lists. But it's not actually officially recognized as an island. People just like calling it island. So there are actually certain landmasses that countries like officially recognize as islands. And it doesn't have anything to do with the size. Like, there's no consistent size between the countries. It's kind of just what the country decides. But the smallest island recognized by the UN, the United Nations, is an island called Simping Island. It's in Indonesia. And it's 1.23 acres big, which is about 53,000 square feet. And so that's the smallest one. And then the largest one is Greenland, which is the largest officially recognized one, so not counting the continents. And that is about 535 million acres. So that's like the range in size that we can have with our islands. So how many officially recognized islands are there in the world? It's probably a lot more than you would think. So just looking at like a small scale example of this, Hawaii, most people just know the major islands. There are actually 8 major islands. But then there's also a lot of really smaller islands within Hawaii that are technically Hawaii. And Hawaii officially recognizes 137 islands.
Jesus.
Yeah. And that there's actually there's a wiki article listing all the names of all the islands. They all have names. So
If you could just read all the names as fast as you can, that would be great.
I couldn't even read, like, I'm bad at pronunciation. I can't pronounce the 8 major ones. So I'm not going to do that. So that's a smaller scale. But if we're looking at the world, how many are there in the world? I looked at multiple sources. One of the sources was worlddata.info. And their methodology, they said that they tried to get their numbers from official government agencies when possible. But some countries only had vague data. And the numbers are like always changing. So like it's not foolproof, but foolproof, not foolproof. But they had a list of like the top 50 countries with islands. And if you add all those up, they said that there are 666,707 islands. There's more than that because they were only counting the
that's
top
a really
50.
precise number for how much they're hedging.
Yeah. I mean, it was just like on a country by country basis, so that's how they did it. So and they were like leaving out all the ones that just had like one island.
No, just like if you're gonna like be like, well, the data's really bad, no one agrees. You say 666,000 islands. You don't say 707 exactly islands. You give yourself a nice round number.
I don't think they actually. I added those up because they had a list of each of the countries, and I put it in a spreadsheet and added it up myself. They didn't actually say that, so. They did it.
You have a very big spreadsheet then.
No, there's only 50 countries that they did.
By country.
Yeah,
okay.
by
I
country.
thought you had a 666,000 line spreadsheet with island names
Nope.
on them.
Nope. That would have been a waste of time. But yeah, this list isn't necessarily that reliable. They didn't have a date on it, so I don't know how recent that data is. So I looked at another source, and this source I suspect is less reputable. It's azanimals.com.
An old standby of the podcast.
Yeah.
It actually is. I
up a
recognize
lot.
that URL.
Yeah.
They say that there are 900,000 islands in the world, and they don't say what their methodology is, but the article was published in April of 2022, so it's a recent article, at least.
Because the number of islands changes so drastically over time.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes countries like, I think I read that I forget what country it was, but just like 1 year they decided that they had more islands, like 100 more islands. So it does change.
Yeah, and I guess rising sea levels would reduce the number of islands, if anything.
Yeah. Anyway. So that's the number of islands. I'm like, no matter how big these islands are, my interpretation is that only one person can live on an island. So it doesn't really matter how big it is, but I'm only going with the 666,000 one. Actually, the number doesn't really matter for the rest of my answer, but I just wanted to cover that because it's interesting. But if only one person is living on an island, that means that they're going to be pretty isolated because like islands aren't necessarily close to each other. There might be like clusters here and there, but overall they're pretty far away. So like how difficult is it for someone to survive alone on an island without like contact with anyone else? So I started looking into self-sufficient farms to see like how much land you need to do that. And according to growcycle.com, raising livestock requires a lot of land. So you'll need as much as like 50 acres because one cow requires 4 acres of land per month, apparently, which is kind of a lot. But if you only do vegetables, then you could get, and if you're like really, really efficient about it, then you can get away with as little as 1/4 of an acre. Which
Wait, 4 acres of land per month? Like, does the cow use it up?
Well,
like, oh man,
kind of.
these
The
acres
cow
are no good no
grazes.
more.
The cow grazes, and then you have to like grow
Yes.
crops for the cow.
Yeah, you need time for the grass to replenish in some way, or whatever they're eating to replenish in some way.
Yeah. At least that was my understanding of it. I don't know how much I can trust growcycle.com, but they seem to know what they're talking about.
No, it's not some rag like AZ Animals.
Yeah, I know. So yeah, if we only need a quarter of an acre to do our vegetable garden thing, to be self-sufficient, pretty much all of our islands are big enough, which is good. But they're not all necessarily in the perfect climate for that. So I started to look into climate for self-sufficient farms. You need something that's not too hot and dry, and you obviously can't be too cold either. You need like a good like Goldilocks zone. Somewhere it's like a transition between temperate climates and Mediterranean climates is what they were saying. So there's like a strip of like on the globe that works. But then there's also a thing called permaculture, which is basically you live off of the natural agriculture. So like if you're in a forest, you just eat berries and stuff. That would be permaculture. And there's like a whole methodology so that you don't like ruin the ecosystem. But the best climate for that, for permaculture, is like a tropical climate, which is like near the equator, which is conveniently where a lot of the islands that we know are. There are a lot of tropical islands. So that's good. So this thing is possible. Living on an island could be possible, but again, not all of the islands are going to be in one of these climates. So if you're not, what do? You're going to need to trade with other islands probably. So you're not allowed to sleep at the island because then that means you're like living there. I guess that was my definition of living there.
Everywhere I fall asleep, I count it as living.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. You have to
I've
draw
been
on
like,
but
somewhere.
nobody invites me over anymore for a sleepover.
Stop living here. But you can visit, so you can visit to like trade stuff. And that's going to be difficult because if you're far away, you're going to need a boat, but the boat takes a long time to get there. And if you're sleeping on the boat, are you living on the island? Are you living on the boat? I don't know.
You're gonna have an existential crisis.
I know. So you need to get there fast. I'm going to say a boat is not fast enough, which means you're going to need a personal airplane. Everyone on an island is going to need a personal airplane, which brought me to the question, how much land do you need for an airport? So you basically just need to accommodate the runway. And different planes require different lengths for their takeoff. I looked up a Cessna Citation jet, which is a 10-passenger jet. It can fly over 2,000 miles without stopping, which is like the distance from Honolulu to San Francisco, almost. Not quite, but it's almost. So that's going from like an island to another land. It's also like around the distance from Boston to Albuquerque, if you can picture that better. But that type of plane, you need 3,400 feet to take off. And not all of our islands will have that. Some of them will, but not all of them. But then I started to think that doesn't really matter because seaplanes exist. We can just use seaplanes.
I was gonna mention them if you didn't.
Yeah.
I was like, man, it's gonna be really shitty to just mention seaplanes after Chris goes on about runway lengths for like 2 hours.
So, I was wondering like how far could seaplanes fly. I looked up a specific seaplane, the Cessna 208 Caravan. And that can carry 4 passengers up to 1,000 miles without stopping, which is about the distance from Puerto Rico to Miami. So you're making it from an island to mainland, or from Boston to Orlando. So, and you don't necessarily need to do the flight in one go. We can have like like stops in the ocean for planes and stuff. I don't know if you can,
But not for sleeping, because then you live there.
yeah, then you live there, so you'll need to commute.
You don't want to live. You don't want to live on your plane. Once you sleep in your plane, you give up your island rights.
I mean, whoever works on that gas stop for the planes is not allowed to sleep there. They gotta commute. Or actually, one person can sleep there.
But if they leave and someone else falls asleep at the gas station, they now own the gas station.
Yeah, these are my rules.
Just aggressive sleeping land rights.
So we were saying that you can't live on the continents because they're not islands, but you can work on the continents technically because you're not living there. So I basically just said that like all the continents are like office space, and they'll be like the marketplace where people trade and stuff. And to get to work, you'll just take your plane, your seaplane, and fly it to your nearest continent. You'll work there for the day. It'll probably be like a couple hours commute, but you got to deal with it because what else are you going to do? And then you'll just go home and you'll sleep on your island. And unless you are self-sufficient, then you don't have to deal with that. Then you can just grow your vegetables. So that is my answer. Marcus, how did you interpret this question?
Yeah, so the way I looked at it was basically taking everyone that is alive now and distributing them across what we have for islands. Rather than saying one person per island and then just pretending we have that many people, seeing can we get everyone who lives onto our existing islands, basically depopulate the continents, and what would that world look like? And so I started looking at where are the centers of power going to be? Where are we going to have most of our people? So of course, I went the same way, looking at what are our biggest islands, and yeah, it's Greenland, and kind of by a long shot. Greenland is 836,000 square miles. The next biggest island is New Guinea at 317, so already less than half that size. And there are 4 others that are above 100k square miles, but basically you have Greenland at 800, New Guinea at 300, and then like 4 more above 100, and then everything is less than 100,000 square miles per island. So if we're going to have this big key like island empire, we're going to be looking at Greenland. Except there's a bit of a problem. As big as Greenland is, unlike its name suggests, it's covered in ice. 80% of it, in fact, is under a permanent ice sheet and is completely uninhabitable. So the people actually living in Greenland are basically exclusively on the coastlines where it's a bit more temperate. So, in absurd hypothetical fashion, can we do something about that ice sheet? How big is it? The ice sheet's average thickness is 1,600 meters, or almost exactly 1 mile thick, which is huge. So what will it take to melt that ice to give ourselves, basically reclaim that land? So it takes 334 joules of energy to melt a gram of ice. A gram of ice is a little bit more than a cubic centimeter of ice when you convert over to volume. So we have a mile thick ice sheet covering 600,000 square miles. So if you go through that quick unit conversion of 334 joules per gram and throw that out up to the volume of everything, we just need a mere 911 zettajoules of energy to melt the ice, or a 9 followed by 2 1s and then 21 zeros.
Zeta sounds cool.
Zeta does sound cool, and with a number that big, I'm gonna just ignore. I'm not saying about the flamethrower. I'm jumping like just straight to nuclear options because that's the numbers we're talking about. So going right up to the top, the largest nuke ever tested, the Tsar Bomba, the kind of like the last big one from Russia. When that explodes, it releases 210 petajoules of energy. That's a 2 and a 1, and then 14 zeros. Comparing that to the 21 zeros that we kind of need. In other words, we would need 4,337,473 nuclear bombs to melt Greenland's ice, which has the benefit of effectively denuclearizing the whole world, and then some, but the not so great benefit of probably causing enough nuclear winter to refreeze the area again, and oh yeah, the radiation may be a problem. Also, fun fact, even if we managed to magically melt all the ice in Greenland, or kind of approach it with some longer-term options, like, say, global warming, there's kind of an interesting issue with Greenland's geography. A large portion of Greenland's, like, central area, and I'm talking, like, maybe, like, 30% of it, is actually below sea level. Greenland is effectively a big bowl full of ice. So even if we get rid of the ice, we don't even get our full 800,000 square miles of area. It's going to be like a good bit less than that. Like, you know, maybe we have 500, which of course is still bigger than all our other islands, but it's kind of, if we're going to put that much work in, it's a real shame not to get it all there. It may actually self-rectify. Part of the reason it is below sea level is the weight of the ice on top of it actually compresses the ground downwards. So there's a chance that the soil would actually kind of like spring back up. But if you look at a map of like what Greenland would look like without an ice sheet, it's just got like a big old lake in the middle, which is pretty cool. But kind of irrelevant because it's clearly not worth it to try and melt this ice because we will end the world trying to do it. So what if we didn't get rid of the ice? Here's a fun fact. 10 inches of ice, like if you have a frozen lake has ice frozen 10 inches thick, that can support a 7 to 8 ton truck on it. That is pretty dang strong.
That is a fun fact. I had fun.
I also had fun.
Yeah, great.
And I'm assuming
Hey,
it was
guys.
factual.
Then we're done here. I've fulfilled my brief of making this podcast fun. So anyway, Ben, no.
And factual.
So what I want to do is let's take this mile-thick ice sheet as a feature, not a bug. Let's carve ice caves through this and put like an elaborate cave system to house people in Greenland. Let's increase the amount of surface area we have by going into the ice. So, given that we only need 10 inches of ice to actually make a floor that will support things, we're going to need some varying ceiling heights, and you're going to need to leave some space for, you know, utilities and whatnot. So I gave it a pretty generous 15-foot height per different floor. So if we have 15-foot thick floors and kind of just stack them up through the mile thickness, and we have our 600,000 square miles of ice, we get basically a livable ice cavern area of 211 million square miles. To put a point of comparison on if it's going to be enough for us, the current land area of Earth is 196 million square miles. So basically, if we have 15-foot thick floors, we end up getting like 352 floors. So basically, if we stack Greenland 352 times on top of itself, we have about the same land area that we have already.
Sucks for the people on the bottom floor.
Well, they're gonna live there. Yeah, they're gonna live
this,
there.
like, weird, like,
we're gonna put
class
some elevators in or
thing.
something. So we could actually house the whole population of the world in ice caverns on Greenland. We do have some concerns, of course. For example, like, can we actually survive? So, Chris, you mentioned kind of food. Food is definitely going to be tricky. We do have the technology. We've talked about vertical farming in controlled areas. So basically, they have a lot of methods now where you'll have like a shipping container with UV lights, effectively, and basically in a completely interior environment isolated, you can produce and grow crops pretty effectively. So we would be able to have enough area for vertical farming. Water is easy. We're surrounded by it. We just gotta melt a little bit of it, and then we can drink that water. I looked a little bit into light because, you don't want to be in the 352nd floor. I was trying to see how deep would light, like the daylight, penetrate into your ice caverns. And the answer is not very far. At about 14 inches of ice depth, only 33% of light will penetrate. So basically, you're losing a third of your light with only 14 inches of ice. So really, the first
people on the first floor.
Yeah, if it snowed on Greenland, which is a possibility, even the people on the first floor may not have that much real daylight. So yeah, we're not going to really get any natural light in there. It'll be a little depressing. So it's doable. We can manage without having natural light. We can manage the food. We can manage the water. But I was also wondering, well, once we start occupying it, will we warm it up too much just with the body heat of the humans in it? There's gonna be 7.8 billion people in here. What's that gonna look like? So a human emits about 100 watts of energy, just going day to day. So per day, a human's going to release 8.6 million joules just as heat to the atmosphere, which is about equivalent to 2,000 calories that you eat during the day. So the calories that you spend and burn, generally, that will go out into the environment. So if we have our 7.8 billion humans, we're releasing 6.78 times 10 to the 16 joules per day worth of body heat into Greenland, which is roughly the third of the amount of one of those Tsar Bomba nuclear bombs, which is kind of a cool comparison. If we put everyone together, we generate enough heat to be a third of a very big nuclear bomb, which actually is a lot more energy than a lot of nuclear bombs. So, power in numbers, I guess. So I have that math. After that point, it gets a bit more complicated. It's a cool comparison. It's not immediately problematic because, if we need 4 million bombs, we'll need 12 million days of human energy to melt all the ice. Of course, you don't need to melt all the ice to start causing problems, and there might be local effects on the ice that are of concern besides, melting it all evenly. So calculating how long we'd have before we melted our own ice cavern got a bit too complicated, especially because it's you have to worry about insulation, heat giving off. It is pretty well insulated, so I think it would eventually be a problem. But really, the numbers, we would be fine for definitely for a while. We could do some cool stuff, like we could make some chimneys to minimize it. But kind of the end point of my answer here is you could do it. You could take everybody, just get some ice carving tools, dig out some tunnels, put in some fancy farm things, and you can just house everybody in Greenland somewhat happily, with emphasis on the somewhat.
You could use other islands too.
Yeah, and if you don't like it there, you can move on to other islands. But why would you when Greenland's got so much going for it?
Because I don't want to live in an ice cavern.
It could be cool.
It could be cool.
It will be cool.
Definitely
It's
cool.
all ice. Hey, yeah, we got there. All right, the low-hanging fruit has been grabbed.
Yeah, so why don't you take that low-hanging fruit and take it over to your answer, Ben?
Run with it. All right. So I went in a slightly different direction, by which I will mean I answered this in the absolute dumbest way possible, because I'm not going to say it was the first way I thought of this when I heard the question, but it was something that came to my mind in a kind of joking way very early, which was, what if everyone lived on their own island? As in, there was one island per person on the planet.
Not the way that I did it.
No, not the way that Chris did it. We're going to do some geographical restructuring here. And we're going to take all the land mass on the planet and divide it equally into enough for one island for every person on the planet.
Communism. Yay!
Yes, exactly.
Share the wealth. Share the land.
So the first thing to figure out is how much does each person actually get? How much are we working with here? And what I want to do is take specifically the habitable land on Earth and then divide that equally. How many people are there? Well, fun fact, we actually, as of very recently, when this is coming out, are crossing the 8 billion line, according to the UN. It's estimated to happen on or around November 15th, 2022. So, congrats.
Ooh, we should have a party.
Us? Yeah, I know, right? Like, I don't know how you celebrate that, or if you celebrate that.
You do a potluck, and then you invite 7.99999 billion of your closest friends.
Yeah.
We answer 8 billion questions.
You get no. You get a cake and put 8 billion candles on it. Happy birthday, humanity. Anyway, that's a nice round number, so we're going to use that. That's fun. Then we need to know how much habitable land there is. And this is where I hit a number that I'm really not happy about using for a reason I'm going to get into, but I don't have a great alternative. So I looked into what percentage of the planet's land is habitable, and I found the same number in multiple places, but always unsourced and always in basically the same wording, in a way that looks like one of these was the first one that got it somewhere and everyone else just copied it from them. Which basically gave it as the surface area of Earth is about 57.3 million square miles, which checks out with other sources I looked at. And then it says that around 33% is desert and around 24% is mountainous, and that's all uninhabitable, which leaves us with about 24.6 million square miles of habitable land. I hate this because, one, I know that there are people who live in the mountains and in desert regions. Like, that is a fact. There's no sourcing, and I tried to verify those percentages and found some similar numbers, but not those. But those are also pretty indistinct terms, so who knows? It's the best thing we have in terms of an actual answer there, so we're just going to go with it. So
Was
if
this
we say
on
we
AZ
have-
God, I literally would believe any number between like 10 and like 98%.
I know, and that's the
Land
problem
being-
too. Is like I have absolutely no gut check on that.
Like, if you told me only 10% of the world's habitable and like 90%,
Like, yeah, that sounds
of it we
right.
just
I don't know.
use.
Like, sure.
Like, yeah, no, I could, yeah, I guess it's swampy or mountainy or deserty. It just sucks for actually making cities in, and we just concentrate our population. But also, you said we could live literally everywhere except Antarctica. I'd be like, yeah, that tracks
sure.
too.
Yeah. So anyway, we have 8 billion people and little under 25 million square miles of livable land. And that works out to 0.003 of a square mile per person, which I saw and thought that is not that much. It turns out that square miles are really big. 0.003 of a square mile is about 86,000 square feet. Some frames of reference, that's the exact same size as the Palace of Holyrood House, which is the official residence of the British monarch in Scotland. Not that useful. More useful, it's about 85% of the size of a city block in Manhattan, or most useful for me, about the size of 1.5 American football fields. Which isn't a huge amount of space, but it's a pretty good amount of space, all things considered.
And then everyone can have a football field, and everyone can rake in that sweet football field money.
Exactly. It's perfect. Getting down to the brass tacks of actual like life in the situation. One of the first things I want to figure out was just what level of technology are we going to have access to? And the answer, I think, is not much. Unsurprisingly, you can't actually get that many people together at one place at one time just because your population is so distributed. Assuming you have a pretty, regular grid of islands, you have 8 direct neighbors and then another, 16 around in the next level out and sort of so on. And to actually gather enough people to have any kind of industry or anything is going to take more time and work than really makes it effective. So I was a little sad about this because I want to figure out how like power would work. But the answer is probably just, I don't know, wind or something because everyone's on islands. So whatever. We're going to say we're relatively primitive here. In terms of using the space, housing does not take up much of that. 86,000 square feet. A standard, two-room house is something like 1,200-ish square feet. Not making that much of a dent. Growing food, I actually got different numbers than you did, Chris. You had roughly 1/4 of an acre per person, right? You said?
Yeah.
So that's about 10,000 square feet. I saw both 200 square feet, which seems hilariously low, and around 4,000 square feet. Regardless, any of those three numbers are once again going to be fine in terms of being able to support this one person on an island. For non-vegetable food stuff, you can obviously fish. I want to figure out if you'd be able to hunt and try to figure out how much animal life you'd expect to have on an island that small. One of the other size comparisons for this size of an island was another island called Seal Island, which is an 87,000 square foot island near Cape Town, South Africa. You might be surprised to find that Seal Island does in fact have some seals on it. I want you guys to guess something. So remembering that 87,000 square feet is roughly 1.5 football fields, how many seals would you think live on Seal Island?
Oh man, I want to say, it's really. I hate when you ask questions because these are really big or really small.
I'm gonna be way off.
Go ahead and guess. You can take that into account. Please do.
I'm gonna say
1,200 seals.
1,200 seals.
I'm gonna say 400.
400 seals. Who do you think is closer?
Me.
It's me.
It is Marcus. How far off do you think Marcus is?
By a lot.
It is more than an order of magnitude off. It is home to roughly 64,000 Cape fur seals.
Jesus. Wait.
I know. I know. It doesn't make any sense to me either, but I checked that in so many places.
It's like 0.6 seals per square foot.
Yeah. Well, okay, so that one's kind of cheating because seals, they
stack.
No, I mean, I don't know. But like
they swim.
They swim, right? They have to like, go back there to rest and sleep or whatever. They don't have to live there and hunt there and everything constantly. So it's kind of a little bit of an unfair question, but it's still.
Do they live there according to my rules?
They'll just literally pile together.
I mean, yes,
not on top of each other.
But yeah, like the pictures of the island are hilarious. There's a lot of seals there. Like a lot of seals. Anyway. I'll send a picture of the seals eventually, but I don't actually have one on hand right now. But I saw one. There's a lot of seals. There are also, of course, many birds and things that live there as well. So the answer is yes, there will be some kind of animal life on your islands. Islands that small can certainly support animals. I'm not saying they're all going to have 64,000 seals. That would be ridiculous. But probability says one will, so I guess lucky you. I don't know. Is that a good thing?
I guess.
There is one more elephant in the room that I kind of want to address, which is kind of where the system starts to break down a little bit.
An elephant seal in the room?
No, they were Cape seals. Keep up, Marcus. What happens when people are born? The next line of my notes is just because I had to think about this one for a while because this does cause some problems.
I mean, my immediate mental image based on your way you said hypothetical is
you throw them onto an island,
you grab it, and you just hawk it into the ocean.
And yes, that is one way to take it, which is going to eventually solve our humanity problem pretty straightforwardly. I will say that even if we break our rules a little bit, because like by a strict reading of the rules, that's what you have to do is just chuck them on an island, leave them there, and they're probably going to die being devoured by seals. If we break the rules a little bit and say that they can, stay with their mother until they're at a certain age, like where they can support themselves to an extent, there's clearly enough room on one island to support two people. So that would work. We do actually have a bigger problem as well in terms of the survival of the species, which is that your dating pool is pretty small, right? Because as I mentioned, you have 8 direct neighbors, and another 16 that are 2 islands away, and then, it sort of scales up that same way going out further. Roughly half of those islands will have a person of the opposite gender from you. And you just need to get lucky enough that one of those is of the opposite gender and roughly your age, basically,
And roughly not terrible.
And roughly not a terrible person. Yeah. And that you can, canoe to each other enough to get things going. So I think the real answer is that, assuming we stick to this ridiculous rule, humanity is going to eventually die off because we're not going to be able to repopulate fast enough. And we're all living on our own on islands, which feels unsustainable. So
also, what if the seals pick your island to also still be Seal Island?
Yeah, it's not great. I mean, how are seals friendly? I don't think they are. I'm pretty sure they're pretty territorial.
Yeah, I don't know.
I have no idea.
If you lie on the ground like a seal, will a seal think you're a seal? Could you just
is that a bonus? Is that a benefit? Do you want to blend in? I don't think. I imagine.
I mean, it's better than being driven away by a herd of angry seals, right? Like, herd? What's the collective noun for seals?
Murder.
Murder of seals. I'm Googling this now.
It's an island of seals.
Is it seriously an island of seals? No, it's herd. Oh my god! Or it can also be a plump. I love it.
A plump of seals.
A plump of seals. Ah, it's so good. Yeah, I don't want to get forced off my island by a plump of seals. I would rather frolic amongst them as a seal, I guess. So that's my answer, is I want to be a seal, apparently.
Is that what's written in your notes?
No, but it's what's written in my heart.
Oh, man. All right, let's hop over to our Would You Rather question.
Marcus.
Yes.
Are you ready for a Would You Rather?
I am.
All right. It is almost Thanksgiving, so we're going to go with a Thanksgiving-themed Would You Rather. Would you rather have to catch a live turkey using only your hands, or empty the insides of the world's heaviest pumpkin, which was 2,702 pounds?
Now, when you say only my hands, I imagine it's like you can't use tools, not like I can't use my legs to chase it.
Yes, you can. You are allowed to use your legs in the process, but you don't have
not
a
allowed
large.
to use your arms, only
you don't
your
have
hands.
like a turkey net or something, right? Like
just dragging myself along the ground,
Yeah.
Turkey, get back here.
No, yes, you can use your body and its various powers, but nothing beyond that.
But you're not allowed to catch it with your
Or-
feet. You're not allowed to stomp it, I guess.
Or empty the biggest pumpkin. Can I use tools to empty the pumpkin?
I would imagine so.
It's gonna
But
be
I also-
pretty difficult either way, I think.
Yeah. This is a picture, I believe, of this pumpkin. Hold on. Let me get a clearer one. This is the world's largest pumpkin. This is a kind of hazy picture. I'll try to find a better one for what we actually put in the episode, but this will work for us. It's pretty big.
That is pretty big.
It's a pretty big
I
pumpkin.
feel like a normal sized pumpkin is pretty tiring to empty out.
It is. And that would be like a...
It comes down to how confident are you in turkey catching.
Right? That's a lot of it. Because I know that eventually I will be able to empty that pumpkin. But turkeys...
Did you know?
Yeah.
Did you know turkeys fly?
They do. This is true.
Actually, it's super weird. Like, have you ever seen a turkey in a tree? It's really weird for some reason.
Very disconcerting.
But they'll fly up into a tree. Like, they'll nest in trees and shit. Like, and they'll just, act like regular birds. You're like, no, stop it. You live on the ground.
I will also say that, we have wild turkeys that live in the office park at my office. And watching them move around is probably the time that I'm most aware of the fact that birds are very, directly related to dinosaurs. They're kind of scary, not gonna lie.
Yeah, especially turkeys.
Yeah.
Turkeys are aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I feel like turkeys, they're not scared of people, so I feel like you'd be able to get close to them easier.
I think you would. Yeah.
They would fight back, but they wouldn't run away.
They're big. They're big and beaky and clawy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they don't have like, I mean, they have like a little bit of a neck to grab. Like, always in Boston, the big one is always all the geese. Like, I definitely could take a goose, because a goose, you just grab it by the neck. Like, you have a very easy spot to try and
They have a handle
to try and take care of the goose. Yeah, they got a handle built in. Turkeys like don't. Their head like retracts back into them. Like, they got a neck, but it's not yours.
I mean, I feel like it's going to be unpleasant to catch the turkey because they're going to like fight back and stuff, and you might get scratched up maybe. But I think that's going to be way easier than emptying out the pumpkin. You're going to be sitting there with the pumpkin for like, I don't even know if you could get it done in a day.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to take a while. It's going to take a lot of doing. But I also know that I'm not going to lose an eye emptying out a big pumpkin. That's kind of up in the air with the turkey.
Yeah.
Also, like, again, there's a chance of failure. I'm leaning very heavily towards pumpkin just for the fact that
Right. It's going to happen eventually.
Like, I'll put in some headphones. I'll put an audiobook on, and I'll get to work.
How, assuming it doesn't like fly away, how long do you think it would take you to catch a turkey?
Well, let's find out. How fast is a turkey?
If it didn't fly away, I think I could do it pretty fast. I would just get scratched up.
Turkeys can clock 18 miles an hour on foot and up to 50 miles an hour in flight.
Yeah, but I don't think they're going to be running away from you.
Marcus, why did I think you were going to say in a car? Turkeys can reach 18 miles per hour on foot and 50 miles per hour in a sweet Harley.
Because they obey the speed limit.
They look sick as hell when they do it.
They'll drive on local roads where the speed limit doesn't exceed 50 miles an hour, and they'll obey it.
So I think you have one good shot at the turkey, and I'm not 100% confident in my chance to correctly grab a turkey on the first try. And then I think it's going to be hard.
So are we saying that, like, for both of these tasks, you have to commit, like, can you do other things and, like, in between? Or do you have to complete the task?
I think you have you have to complete the task. You can do other things related to the task, but you have to like do that task.
So you can't stop emptying out the pumpkin until you're done.
I think so.
Like, I think you can stop for lunch.
Yeah,
like I think it's
right.
like it's like your job. Like, your job for today is you go out, like, you go out to a fair that you're helping set up with like your family, and your parents are like, hey, do you want to empty out the pumpkin or you want to catch the turkey? and you pick one.
Yes, the standard division of labor. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And yeah, you pick one, and that's your job for the event. Like, no, you're not gonna die if you don't do it, of course. But like, you're pretty obligated to. You have a strong social obligation to succeed in the task.
Right, but then you can't. But I guess. Can you, like, go to sleep and stuff?
I mean, I don't know if it's going to be a multi-day task to empty the pumpkin.
I'm going to say you can't do any non-survival tasks until you complete your assignment. So you can sleep if that is required. You can eat, you can take
But it's more
breaks
than
for
just an
exhaustion.
8-hour work day.
Yeah.
Yeah, how long does it take to endurance hunt down a turkey?
Right.
Oh, man.
I mean, at least with hunting down the turkey, like, you get to, like, if it does fly away, then you get to, like, go around and, like, just walk around and search for things.
You can also find a different turkey if that one flies away. Like,
yeah.
I'm assuming you're provided a turkey at the start of this round. That one does get away. You could find a different one, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm gonna just end it with, I gotta pick pumpkin because I don't, even though I probably could, if needed, catch a turkey, I don't feel confident in my ability to do so. I also worry that I'll just like hesitate at the last moment. Like you're like chasing the turkey, like finally catching up, and then like you get close and it turns around and it looks at you with this evil turkey eyes, and then it's like and then you have to make sure you don't hesitate in that moment. And do I have it in me? I don't know. You don't know till that turkey moment comes. So I'm gonna go with the pumpkin.
Chris, thoughts?
I think I'm going to go with the turkey. I think the pumpkin's going to take a lot longer than you think it is. I think it's going to be a multi-day thing, and it's just going to be really tiring, even though you are definitely going to get it done eventually. I don't know. I was walking around in Cambridge the other day, and I saw a turkey that was walking down the road, and I got pretty close to it. I was like, I think I could catch that turkey. So I'm going turkey.
God. I think I gotta go pumpkin. I don't know. Turkeys kind of freak me out. I don't know, man. Like they're weirdly creepy looking in a way that I'm not particularly ready to wrap my arms around and, throw to the ground. And
yeah, like how much of that is like stuff you can grab?
Right.
Like, it's how much is feathers, how much is like sharp, and how much is I don't know what it'll be like if I try to like hit a turkey. What will happen?
Yeah, the problem I have is that I don't think, putting my mind to it, I don't know how I'm going to grasp the turkey to constrain it. So it's definitely going to take me multiple attempts to like figure that out live. And I don't want to have to catch a turkey effectively multiple times. There's one pumpkin, I can put my, get some elbow grease on it and get that knocked out. Like,
I think I'm just more confident in my turkey catching skills than the two
I
of
think
you.
you are,
wrong.
obviously.
Yeah.
We and Ben aren't sitting here walking down the street being like, I can catch that fucking turkey.
There's literally a turkey walking down the street just in front of the cars, and the cars are all backed up, and I got like pretty close to it, and it didn't flinch at all. So I could have just like went. I think I could have grabbed it.
I mean, that's a city turkey.
It counts.
All right, so that's our take on turkey catching. If you enjoyed this episode, or want to hear us talk about more ridiculous, nonsense, silly things, you can support us by going onto our Patreon, www.patreon.com/absurdhypotheticals, and you can become a patron, one of our good Absurd Hypotheticals. And for just a singular $1 each month, you get access to all our bonus content that we produce exclusively for our Patreons every month. So that's the stuff behind the paywall. So go ahead and hop over with cash in hand and go do that. If you have a cool idea for a hypothetical question that you want us to answer, send it in to us. If you're on YouTube, you can just throw it right in the comments. Otherwise, absurdhypotheticals@gmail.com is probably the best way to get it to us. And we would love to get your questions and answer them. And as with everything else that you consume or purchase or anything else nowadays, if you like it, leave a review. That way everyone knows that you liked it. And if they find it and they're like, what's this? And they'll look at the reviews first and they'll be like, wow, look what Billy said about this episode that made him laugh. That's really cool. Maybe it'll make me laugh. And then they'll click through it and actually listen. And then there's another listener listening to this podcast. And that's how it grows. So leave a review. That would be very great and helpful as well. And once you've done all those things in that order, you can join us for our next episode where we answer the following question. What if all animals were mammals?